All right. A warm greeting to all of you here. Very glad to see all the participants on an weekend evening, because that takes a lot of commitment and an internal push to attend the session. So, thank you for being here. I'm Mohammed Adil. I am going to be the facilitator for the session today. I am an assistant professor by profession. I work at Sri Krishna Aditya College of Arts and Science, Coimbatore. I've specialized in counseling psychology and UGC qualified, net qualified faculty. And with regards to Chanakya, this is our brainchild, which we incepted in 2020 during the pandemic, where we understood there is a gap and it has to be met, because there were a lot of people who need definite support to handle those rough phases of life. And ever since 2020, we've been organizing a lot of webinars, certificate courses, and also internships. And we take up therapy sessions as well. So it all goes one in one. And we often conduct free webinars so that we contribute continuously to the ecosystem here. Because the ecosystem of mental health, we need upgradation, we need inputs, and to add to it from our end, we keep conducting few webinars on multiple topics of what is the that interest people. So today we actually had a request to conduct a proper webinar on the actual scope of counseling psychology. So that is because what is projected as counseling and the services that we provide is actually kind of unclear for a lot of people, because that is how it's been shown in media. Like, say, when I say media, a lot of what is shown as counseling in movies is not right. It's not supposed to be that way. And most of us, again, on the other end, are sticking to one particular stereotype of how a counseling session would look like and what is the job role of a counseling psychologist. So we were discussing over this once, and then we decided, okay, we'll tell like a discussion. Let us talk about what all we could do if you are a counseling psychologist. Right. So every discipline, well, let's say every field of study, starts with a simple question as to, does this have scope? Right? Like, will I be employed? Or will I be doing well in the market if I complete this particular graduation? So for that question, we have the statistic out here. 1 out of 5 in a country like India, 20% of the population needs counseling at some point in their life. It could be in their early adulthood or adolescent phase, or even later life after they get into a marital relationship, whatever it is. But then in the course of life, 1 out of 5 individual in India needs counseling support at some point. So out of the population that we have, if you just take 20%, or say every 5 person and one of them needs support, imagine the scope of this particular field. I don't think any other number would explain this better. So in terms of what we do, what is going to be our role, or let's say the job description that goes in most of the cases, what are we going to do is just a facilitator. We are not problem solvers, that though certain approaches say that we are supposed to be the problem solver for our client. Even I don't have a personal opinion with that, because I feel we are more of a facilitator, and we will help them drive through one point to the other, right? Because they have a particular thought process which they are not able to put it into action, or they are doing something which they are not really happy about, but they are not able to overcome. So somewhere or the other, it is a mismatch, a misalignment between what they think and what they do, thoughts and actions. So it is just our role to be a facilitator and do the corrective treatment and bring in alignment between their thoughts and actions, right? So in a lot of areas, the problem is in the subconscious, because consciously, if everybody has a great insight about what is disturbing them, then we need to intervene. But in a lot of cases, the problem is buried under deep under the subconscious mind, and its influence is very well seen in a manifested content in what they do and how they think in their everyday life, right? So it is our duty to be an active listener and connect the dots and help them overcome from what is disturbing them right from their subconscious area, right? So it's not just point A to point B, but also sometimes there are people who do not have a clear idea as to what they want. They know they have a problem, they know they're being disturbed or something, but they're not really sure of what is happening and what they should expect out of therapy. So we again would help them define the goals for them. Okay, so these are the options available. You can choose to go with any of these routes, and once they decide a goal, we go about saying, okay, this is the methodology, the roadmap, right? So they divide the entire goal into multiple sub goals because they need help with that, right? Divide the goals into sub goals and help them to reach those goals one by one, right? Support at any level that is doable and required, right? So a lot of people are not sure of where the problem is. If we can understand where we are lacking, or if we can understand what is the disturbance, an insight about the problem is like 70% there to the solution, right? So once you know this is the problem, it is very easy for you to make plans accordingly and change your actions, your thought process, and then it is solvable. But that is where a lot of people need support as well. They are not able to spot the problem. So we will help them realize, okay, this is your problem, this is where it lies. And once you put it on the table, and then slowly we are going to pull out all the solutions from them, right? We are not going to tell them this is what you're supposed to do, because they'll not take ownership of it, right? So it will be like end of the day, someone else who asks them to do A, B, and C. They will not be sportive enough. They won't take ownership of it. Rather, if they themselves say, okay, for this, I should be doing A, B, C, and D, then we can just keep a track, give them the support. You said you are going to do A, B, C, and D. How far are you in that? Right? When they come up with the solutions, then they taking ownership of it is much, much better. Right? And it makes the process easy. So, what is our scope again? When I talk about counseling psychology and its career prospects, I make use of this particular graph, which helps me give you an easier perspective. Say in the field of psychology, it is clear to make an educational distinction between clinical psychology and counseling psychology, right? In an educational front, clinical psychology is after masters, you'll be doing 2 years of in-house training as an MPhil scholar, and then you'll be there. After 2 years of rigorous training, you get certified by, you get licensed from RCI, and that is how you start practice. But for counseling, to be a counseling psychologist, in most cases, it demands you to have a master's in counseling psychology. Or additionally, you can equip yourself with a postgraduate diploma or any other additional certificate courses in counseling to add to your value. But when it comes to the field and when you start practicing, that distinction that you were able to spot in the academic front is not seen here in the field. You will not be able to distinct, okay, this is what the clinical psychologist should do and this is what I would do. Not that easy, because some areas, certain areas like assessing the intellectual capacity of an individual and giving them a certificate saying they are intellectually disabled, or doing certain personality assessments. So there are certain areas where it is concrete that only a clinical psychologist should do. They demand that RCI license and further details. But when it comes to therapy, when it comes to counseling, handling sessions, it's a gray area, right? It's not clear. So when you look at this graph right here, let's say I call it the well-being spectrum. On the one end, on the negative end, the area that is shaded, no, that is more of the clinical population, right? That 16% there are people who are mostly hospitalized, people who need institutional support, people who need rigorous monitoring, and mostly people who can't completely take care of themselves, right? Who can't hold complete responsibility for their own self. Because when you look at the origin of the term clinical psychology, it refers to bedridden people, clin, and it means bedridden people. So that is the kind of population, some intense, disabilities and disorders is where they deal with. So that area is like a concrete area for clinical psychologists. But then after that, the next 34, the first 34 percentage here, it talks about people who have certain, or let's say mild to moderate level of psychological disturbances, right? Mild to moderate, because severe everywhere it comes into the clinical population. Mild to moderate is where counseling psychologists can handle very well, right? Where they are equipped to handle such cases. Mild level of, mild to moderate level of depression, anxiety, yes, very well. Counseling psychologists can cater to their requirements. The next 34% are people who are okay but who wish to be better, right? Like that is more in term of people taking up marital counseling, premarital counseling. They're doing good, all right, but they want to be better. So like in precautionary measure, they are taking up counseling services. Or vocational preferences, they are confused as to how to go ahead for vocational choices, and then you give a career counseling session. So people who are better, but people who are okay, but they want to move to the better zone. That is the 34% there. More of guidance work happens there. The next 13.5 percentage is our scope for training and development. So training here talks in terms of parenting workshops, where you train young parents about what wonders they can do if they provide the right inputs to their children. Or let's say an adolescent, and they are just exploring what it is to be an adult, and you can give a session there and sharpen their perspectives. And let's say it's a company, and they have a set of employees, and their leadership qualities to be improved, or team building to be improved, or let's say simply work life balance, or stress management. Yes, all those trainings that you can give people to push them from being better to good, that goes into that 13.5 area. And the rest of 2.5 are people who shoot for the best. So this comes as the area for people who take up coaching, life coaching, business coach, and all of that areas. People who are already doing great, but they want to push further and be the best. So when you look at the entire spectrum, what is completely given for the clinical psychology population is the 16 percentage here roughly, right? The rest of 84 is the area where clinical counseling psychologists can work, right? They have complete freedom to work in those areas, provided that they are equipped with, they are trained to do it. But they can very well handle this 84 percentage of the well-being spectrum very well, right? So broadly, to given areas, if you're someone who's looking for immediate career opportunities, right after my MSc in counseling psychology, I want to start a safe and guaranteed income kind of an opportunity, then school counselor is one area for you. Lot of schools, let's say CBSE and ICSE boards, they demand to have a counselor in their campus, right? if you are someone from the metropolitan hub, then they mandatorily have a counselor in their campus. And in the other areas like urban and semi-urban areas, it is slowly increasing, because the kind of problem the schools are facing currently, it demands them to have an in-house counselor, right? So in the near future we can also expect a counselor in every school, right? Recently, government of Tamil Nadu has announced to extend counseling support to school children. They can just dial up the number and talk to psychologists if they need any support. Imagine government bringing in certain permanent work opportunities in these areas, then it's a wide scope out there. Because with the indulgence of technology, greater indulgence of technology into teaching and learning, the more there's a gap between the teacher and the learner. When you consider your mobile phone or the gadget and Google to be your faculty, your distance from the actual faculty is increasing, right? And with other areas as well, like say children who have certain problems that's going on in their family, and because of which they're not able to concentrate in classes, right? Maybe he or she is a good student in the academic performance, but right now they are disturbed. Yes, we are their go-to people. Definitely their class teachers or in charges would take care, but then to help them out completely, we will do the role well. And when it comes to in the higher grades, let's say grade 8 and above, that is where children usually start to explore who they are, their sense of identity, their sense of sexuality and intimacy, and a lot more. So again, if someone is misguided, we can intervene to give them the right channel to explore who they are. That there are people who are confused as to what they want to do, identity versus identity confusion. So giving them certain activities to explore their own self and then come up with what they really fit into and what actually brings out that passion in them. That is all something that we can do, right? School counselors do career counseling as well. Tell kids what they can do, what they can study. So it is a wide area, an area where you can apply a lot of psychology, right? In certain institutions, they have clubbed school counselor with resource rooms where they'll take care of children who need additional support in learning, right? Maybe they're not completely like dyslexic, or they're not diagnosed with a learning disability, but then they're slow to learn. So we can support by providing certain memory techniques or improving their study habits, and finding what approach works better for them, and then trying to help them with that additional teaching. All those resource room kind of roles are also played by school counselors in certain institutions, right? And when it comes to family and marital, see, personally saying, this is one area where you can literally save lives of people. Because marriage is one institution which, if you get into, that is going to last for a lifelong. So if we can identify in the very beginning that these two individuals will not get along well, or it is highly risky to get these two people into a marital relationship, or we can at least suggest them that these are different areas where you might have differences in opinion, then maybe that is one step of making their lives much better, right? So it is more of prevention than an actual cure, because if they can find the right partner, they will not be sitting again with us in marital counseling sessions. Not necessary to be here for family therapy if premarital is done right. Because in India, the statistic says 1% of the married population, it goes for divorce. But when you consider the population of India, and if you just take 1% out of it and translate that into numbers, imagine how many people are planning to end their marital relationships, because it is not just two individuals, it's two families involved, and if they have kids, then the future is also, bothered. So it needs a lot of intervention, because as simple as having minor differences in their preferences. Let's say one person wants the AC to be on and at 16 all the time, and the other person says, I don't even want the AC on. It is, like two poles. So it could be in movie preferences, food cuisines and preferences, the kind of outing that they want to, the kind of culture that they stick to, their dressing. A lot of areas where even minor difference in opinion would come up as a bigger bomb, right? So, and post that, after if we are done with the premarital, then when we come to family and marital settings, see, the challenge comes in here, because in the recent times where it's all work from home, and when you are living in the same roof for like 24/7, a lot of people had a lot of issues going on. It wasn't easy, because work occupies like one third, or for some people two-third. One half of the day, and the rest for sleep and for family. The limited exposure to family members saved a lot of relationships. But when it was forced that complete exposure, 24/7, you're there. A lot of them couldn't manage. So, family and marital is one area where you'll always have a job to do, because in certain states, the family court would ask for counselors. So that is on an consultation basis, like say 400 rupees per hour. But then the number of cases that you will handle will increase, because the court would give you, adequate number of cases for you to handle, right? So having good connects with people from the legal background will help you get clients, if you are willing to enter into family and marriage, right? And then rehabilitation area. So though there is a separate area for rehabilitation psychologists, which is again licensed by RCI, what we are supposed to do here in rehabilitation is bring up the mental makeup for them to enter the society back again. Because for someone after a heavy disability, or an accident, or something, mishap or an unexpected event, they lose the sense of purpose in life, right? They're like, okay, what am I going to contribute further? So when they have such a mentality, and then they'll not be able to come back and be a part of the society which they were. And our role as counselors here is to help them find a purpose, a meaning for life, and give them the platforms, necessary platforms, or the pathway on how that can be done. And we have to bring them back into the society with a sense of purpose and respect. That is very important, because as that is the major thing which is lacking. People are not ready to come back in after any major life event, right? So when you work with people in the rehabilitation area, uh, it is more of an service, it is more of an responsibility, right? And you can also work with cancer survivors, families of people who are battling cancer. Yes, they will need support. Their family members also need support, because how to handle them, because that could be certain mood swings because of the medication and treatment that they are going through. They might be very low on hope and expectation in life, and how to handle them, because we as a counselor will not be with them 24/7, but the family is. So they are the primary interventionists. Like they'll give them the necessary support, the necessary hope and positivity. So we are supposed to train them. And you can see a lot of burnout in the caregivers, and they need to be taken care of as well. So what they can do, a bit of self-care, a bit of self-love, and keeping themselves together and up, only then they can take care of their family members. So that is all it takes in a rehabilitation area. Then organizational counselor. There are certain studies which have said that having an in-house counselor all the time is not that effective. Rather, if a counselor is visiting, like a consultant counselor who drops in like once in 2 weeks or so, that is found to be more effective. This is because the distinction is not very clear in the organizational area, where they hire you as an organizational counselor, but you end up doing most of the HR works a lot of time, right? You would be doing that because it is again a gray area, like clinical and counseling. Counseling and organizational psychologist is also quite in gray area. The distinction is not very clear, vivid. So they end up doing HR works, and people gradually lose the trust in the counselors there. Because the confidentiality becomes a bigger question mark, and people are not very comfortable to go ahead with them. But people who have understood this, they started doing employee assistance programs, right? In terms of EAP, you would be having an like an MOU sort with the company, and you will visit them once in 2 weeks, right? In that sense, you will be able to help them better. So work-life balance and handling stress in the workplace, like beating with the market, because they have to upskill themselves regularly. When it turned on offline to online, and they had to work from home, there was no clear difference as to when is their work time and when is their family time. There was no distinction. So how to manage? Then we were consulting, we were providing inputs, and then for a lot of people we would say, have a clear difference between your work area and your rest area. If you just sit in your bed and continue to work, then you will not have the complete sense of rest if you come back there to sleep, right? So have a desk, or at least sit in a different area to work, and then to rest come back to another area. These are certain inputs that we were able to give, and it worked for them as well, right? And how to take care of the team spirit. So if it is offline, people used to conduct fun Fridays, and that is the role of HRs mostly in companies, where something or the other to boost up the morale of employees. And when it turned online, people wouldn't want to attend as well if it is online. But what else they could do? And we were brainstorming. We kind of discussed what they used to do, and we converted that online, and in a way that employees would readily accept such events. So we can definitely give an inputs, because wherever people are involved, psychology is involved, right? So in order to extract the best work out of your employees in a way that they are ready to contribute, we can do those wonders there. And the last one, the adult and geriatric counseling, it is like increasing in the recent trends, the geriatric population, because you could see a high sense of self in people in the geriatric ward in the recent times, not the earlier generation, but the current generation. They have a high sense of self, and they don't want to be dependent on anyone. They want to handle their own finances, their own lives, and but in the due course they undergo a lot of difficulty, and we can definitely support them, because if you are a little futuristic and if you want to stand out of the crowd and mark your individual presence, then geriatric counseling is one area that you can explore, right? Because the other areas are very well established. It still has scope. It's very well established, and it might take you some time to shine out from the group if you are into the other areas. But in terms of geriatric, if you're interested and if that is your aim to stand out from the crowd, you can go there. And in the future, yes, definitely. So apart from all of this is the regular mental health counselor roles, where you can set up counseling centers and startup sessions, handle sessions, or you can be working in a hospital where you're working under a psychiatrist or in combination with a clinical psychologist. It works as a team. That is also doable, right? So this is the area where people with mild to moderate level of psychological disturbances come to you, and then you'll be handling them, right? So a lot of people think that this is the only thing to do, but then there is a lot more areas that you can, right? So what it takes, to be an effective counselor, or say to do well in the field of counseling psychology, you need to have genuine interest in people, because it will give you monetary benefits. It's going to be your source of everything. But then, how long will you be able to push it just for the monetary benefits, right? Because you will easily fall into the trap of burnout if you just run for money. You should have that interest in you, the interest in people, and to address to their needs, be of help, right? Only then counseling could be a suitable profession for you, right? Because it demands a lot of your time and energy, right? So you are putting in a lot of work, just that people will not be able to see it. Oh, you're just sitting there listening to people. It's not just sitting and listening to people, but then a lot of mental energy and exhaustion happens there, which is not visible to the naked eye, but then that's definitely a demand on energy. So end of the day, you need the interest to help people, to be of support. If you have that, yes, self reflection. So self reflection more in line of empathy, because say you're watching a movie, and then the protagonist is going through something, a hard phase, and they're in an emotional breakdown. Everything is happening. You're able to observe it. You're able to take it in the similar sense, because they're showing everything right in front of you. You're seeing what is happening, and what you see is what you perceive, and it's very easy. But your client is not going to show you a movie and say, this is what happening in my life, or this is how it is. They're going to tell what is happening, and it is in your part that you have to break it down, observe, and perceive it in the same sense, right? So a lot of self-reflection is required. You have to stand in that particular position, see how you would feel, how you would think, what you would go through if you were there. Taking that as an input, work with it, and then transfer it to the client. So a lot of internal process goes in there as well, right? So you have to understand yourself first, so that you use yourself as a tool in counseling, because we are the tool. You don't have anything else. It is you. So in order to use yourself as a tool for counseling, self-reflection is very, very important. And the ability to listen, it is mandate for a counselor, but then it needs special mention, as our span of attention is reducing in a very rapid pace, right? Imagine there were videos, let's say when you were using YouTube or Facebook, even it is a 45 minutes video, or even it's a 1 hour video, you would patiently sit and watch it. And then came Instagram, where it's just 1 minute, right? 60 seconds. So 60 seconds and you move to the next one. So then Facebook was very demanding for you. That was boring. You couldn't spend a lot of time on Facebook because that was boring. Instagram was short, 1 minute, and then you move. Then there's shorts now on YouTube and everywhere. It's only 50 seconds or 15 seconds to 30 seconds. So our ability to pay attention to a particular concept is reducing in a very rapid pace. And with higher intelligence of technology, the pace is like double or triple. So in order to sit for a session and listen to someone for like say 50 minutes straight, it's hard. It's just as equal as meditating. Imagine you're sitting for meditation and then you're trying to calm your mind down, and then that is when a lot of thoughts would intervene and distract your attention. You'll not be able to focus at all. So similarly it happens with counseling as well. You'll be sitting there trying to listen to your client, and then that is when what happened in your house yesterday would start bringing in your mind, and then a meme that you saw on Facebook, or then you'll be thinking about what should I order for lunch. A lot of these thoughts, your own thoughts, would disturb, because listening is mandatory, and it is not just superficial listening or in the surface level. We have to get into the depth of listening, because we have to read in between the lines as well. We have to understand what the client is telling. You have to understand what they are muffling up and telling in between the lines. And sometimes we have to also understand what they are not telling. You have to pay attention to the non-verbal behavior and details, and from that we can understand what they are not telling to us. So what they are telling, what they are in between the lines, and what they are not telling, we have to actively pay attention to all of this. When you read about counseling psychology, they say active listening, right? So to understand what is active listening in a very simple sense, say you will be listening to them, and by the end of that particular statement you would automatically have a response to it, right? You have actively listened to it, so that you need not think about what should I say next or what should I ask next. You needn't think about it. If you are paying attention, if you're paying sufficient attention, the next question or the comment automatically comes up to your mind. And that is how active listening works. So the ability to listen is very, very important. And, just in a matter of 1 hour lecture, just calculate how many times you zone out. And imagine you zoned out when your client was telling a very crucial life event. So this has to come by practice. I wouldn't say from your very first session you should be able to pay complete attention and listen them in and out. It's not possible. But you have to develop this through practice. Right? Only then you'll be able to do justice to the role. And flexibility. Flexibility doesn't mean only being flexible with availability. Let's say the client said, I'm not able to join session today, can I come tomorrow? It's not just that. Flexibility in thoughts and perspectives is more required. Because say in the current trends, you meet a lot of people who associate with LGBTQ plus community, and they are presenting a lot of concerns that they have, what they face in their first circle or second circle or society in large. And you should have the flexibility to accept them, understand them, and help them. If acceptance is not there, understanding will not happen. If there is no acceptance and understanding, how will you help them? Right? See, nowadays multicultural perspective is required for every area. Because earlier people were confined to their own limits, their own geographical limits. They were just there. They didn't want to move. They didn't want to push themselves out of the comfort zone. But then it doesn't work the same today. You are just more open to travel, more open to explore. So you'll find people, a good mix of people everywhere. So you should have the flexibility to take in all their cultural perspective, lingual perspective, thought process, everything, right? So here again, empathy is required, and and a huge amount of open-mindedness is needed. So just for someone who is, let's say, out of the participants, someone who is in the final year of masters, or who are planning to build the skill set for counseling psychology, I would say you have to focus on three major areas, right? That is, you can categorize them. One is uh, the skill set or therapy techniques to restructure the client's perceptions, basically thought process, right? So a lot of the cognitive therapy techniques, like say REBT or CBT, that comes under restructuring client perceptions, restructuring client thought process. So go for a solid training in that area, upskill yourself with REBT or CBT. And let's say if someone is walking in and you finally tap down and understand that there is certain thought process, illogical, irrational thought process, and then the client's thought process has to be restructured, then that will be your go-to techniques, REBT. Or say there is certain maladaptive behavior seen in the client, right? And that is the root cause for all the problem, and you're supposed to change those maladaptive behavior or addictive behaviors. Then you should have certain go-to techniques for behavior change, right? Let's say exposure therapy or flooding, whatever you connect yourself with and what you find will serve the purpose. Train yourself better with that set of techniques as well. And then finally, for handling physiological arousals and emotional distress, here a lot of relaxation techniques and stress management techniques is needed. So JPMR and like mindfulness techniques and a lot of stress management that goes in here. So anybody who walks in general, when you look at the presenting complaints and the kind of problems that they have, you can easily categorize them into any of these three. Either they have an irrational, illogical thought process, cognitive distortions, so their thought process has to be restructured, and that will solve everything. Then that is one segment. They have certain maladaptive, unacceptable behaviors or addictive behaviors, certain patterns, and that has to be changed, behavioral change. And then emotional or stress related problems, that is one segment. So to start with, pick one therapeutic technique from each area, upskill yourself, be confident with that, so that you can handle any client based on the problem that they propose, right? So focus on all the three areas equally. Yep. So all the best for those who are planning to take up counseling as a career. Yes, we welcome. There is ample space for all of you to fit in. And for those who are considering counseling as an area, and who are trying to join a program like Masters in Counseling, and you've given all the data here to think about and reflect. Right? So if any of you have any queries, we can shoot it in the chat box and we can discuss for a while before we wrap the session.
Hello.
Yes.
Yeah, hi, sir. Sir, you talked about active listening, right? So
Yeah.
in active listening, like we should know the question that we have to ask as well, the thing that we have to say after the client completes. Okay. So how to know that what we are going to ask or say is the correct thing to ask? Right? Is it something that comes with practice, or do we need to learn that beforehand?
Like what happens with the people who practice initially is that whenever they attend to a client, they become a little anxious as to, okay, what should I say next? So that keeps them preoccupied, and it doesn't help them, to focus on the client, the presenting problems. So when we say active listening, you given your focus completely to the client, and as you listen to them with your understanding of the problem, the next statement or the question comes up to you automatically. You needn't think, you needn't like spend some time when you're already listening, and also back of the mind you're thinking about what we should be asking them or saying or commenting. It is not required. So that is how active listening helps.
Okay, sir.
It comes to you automatically. The response comes to you automatically.
Yes, got it. Thank you.
Hi, sir.
Oh,
I'm audible.
hi Sanu.
Sir, so I am
Yes, yes, you are.
MSc Counseling Psychology final year student. So, sir, if we want to start our own independent center as counseling psychologists,
Yes, you
could
are
you tell
from
me what
Jain.
are the yes, 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 yes. So, what are the requirements we need to start our own center as counseling psychologists? Is there any RCI license we need? If yes, what we do for that?
No, there is no license for counseling psychologists. It is for clinical and rehabilitation is where they provide license, not for counseling. But then when it comes to professional associations, a lot of people be a member of certain groups, a certain like counseling psychology associations, and so it's just for membership in the particular association. So for you to start up master's degree is well and good on paper. Till date in India, if you want to start a center, if you have completed MSc in counseling psychology, you're good to start. But then you will need someone to supervise you, and like a mentor. At least for the initial couple of years, you will need a counselor, like a mentor for you to go back in terms of doubts, because the practical exposure that you've got might not be sufficient just with the internships that you have done, if any, right? So you have to handle cases like A to Z, like, completely. Only then you'll be able to do justice to what you're doing. So at least if you plan to start a counseling center by your own, you should have volunteered with certain organizations by now and handled a good number of cases, so that it gives you the confidence to start a session. Or else join an organization, work there, take the support of supervisors. Within a year or so, then you can think of starting your own organization. I would suggest that.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, I have few questions, sir.
Yes, ma'am. Okay,
I've placed
that's
in
in
the
the chat.
chat
Okay,
also.
yeah.
Yes, sir. So for the
Sure. I'll add.
EAP, do we need any specific specialization training? Because what you rightly said that many of the companies look as HR, and but how do counseling psychologists fit into this EAP, sir? And do we need to do any specialization training for this?
Not a specialization training in the sense, ma'am, but it works like in like a consultancy, because EAP, it is a team. Only counseling psychologists, just a team of counseling psychologists will not be sufficient, because it is like a package for every employee out there. So like say, when we talk about well-being, there are four domains, like say physical, psychological, social, and emotional, or say spiritual. Then everything has to be taken care of in terms of EAP. So it is more of an extended HR program, where HR in-house will take care of hiring, the recruitment process, training and development in induction, and other support system like well-being of employees and other areas will be taken care by these EAP consultants. So that has to be a team. you will have certain HR people from HR background working in psychologists as well, and you should be providing a wide variety of resources and supports to them. It's
Okay, sir.
counseling
But
them and providing psychological support is one area, and then there is other areas as well. Yes, ma'am.
But how do we will be called, sir? Because we have positions like HR business partners and HR CVPs and all. But what is the specific title that counseling psychologist will be in terms of this employee friend, sir? How
No,
will they
like
be
when it
called? Do
comes
we?
to
Yeah.
like you can call them well-being officers as well.
Okay. Okay.
Because I
Okay, sir.
think recently I saw one of my friend who joined an MNC as a well-being officer.
Okay. Okay. That's great to hear, sir. Thank you.
So yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So
My next
that is the
question is
area.
on. Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir. And the next question is on. Sorry, I have for being two, three questions,
No
sir. But
problem, no
just
problem.
that I want to clarify how to avoid the counter transference, sir. Because when we are new to this counseling, sir, I face this issue of this counter transference, even when I just casually speak to some people. So how to avoid this?
You know, primarily the idea of counter transference will very well contradict with the ethics and responsibilities that we are supposed to maintain as a counselor. So
Okay.
whenever you find yourself that it is taking a slight D route, and it is more towards counter transference, you have to be a little mindful to remind yourself about what you should be doing in terms of ethics and responsibility,
Hmm. Hmm.
because it is very casual. As in terms of helping them, we would associate them for a particular people that we know in life. Like say someone of
Right.
an older adult, we would say okay, almost like my parent figure.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah, someone younger we would see as our siblings or someone in the relative. We easily make these references for us to understand the problem better, but that shouldn't make us move more towards counter transference, as you say. So I think practice of mindfulness is required in the first level as you start practice, because it is natural. And as you see that you're sliding more towards that area, you have to remind yourself that no, this isn't what you're supposed to do. So practice
Okay.
of mindfulness is required.
Okay, sir. And I think this third question is more or less related to it, but I really wanted to put it like, how do we prevent us from being judgmental or throwing away our own prejudices, sir? Because as in India, right, we have been brought up in families, right? We are being told what to do and what not to do. We have been following a set of things, and we have these prejudices all within ourselves. And when we go for a counseling psychologist, we see different ranges of people with different um sectors of issues, right? So how do we stop from being in that perspective, sir? Because we found some cases studies which contradicts with the entire thing, and we can't say that they are right or wrong. That shouldn't be our line of actions, no, sir. So how do we deal with that in the initial stages, sir?
It takes a longer route and a tougher route, but the most effective one would be to read. To read the vibrant literature that we have, the different literature that we have, and then only through that you'll be able to get into life of certain people. And once that reading happens, then automatically prejudice and judgments just flies away automatically. But yeah, that might not be the go-to option for a lot of us because it demands certain commitment and time. Say, you know, if we don't have the exposure to the wide range of people, if we didn't have the opportunity and or the upbringing or so, that is when problems stem up right now. So either we have to read the ones that we couldn't interact with, we have to read, or try to attend a lot of forums. let's say, um,
Okay. Yes, sir.
yeah, something like human library. I whenever I had the chance, I used to attend human library events where you will get to know the stories of people from diverse backgrounds, and their stories would give you wide perspective about the background and what they go through. So attend rather attend such programs whenever possible. Also, social platforms, and that will slowly help you with this.
Uh, Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for the patience and elaborative reply, sir. Thank you.
Sir, I have a doubt.
Yes.
I am currently pursuing my counseling psychology, MSc counseling psychology degree. I would like
Yes,
to know
Priya.
what theory to specify on, like in a sense, a therapy to do a diploma course or like a week's course or something like that.
Priya,
That
sorry,
will help me.
your voice is cracking.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes, yes,
Hello.
better.
Sir, I'm currently
Yes.
pursuing my MSc counseling psychology and I want to practice in this area. So, if you would suggest a particular therapy approach for me to specify on, like do a diploma course or something like that, what would that be?
Okay. So a lot of people now revert back to art therapy.
Okay,
Okay. Because as a person, if you are more towards the younger population, children
okay,
and early adolescents, and so, if you want to work in that area, art therapy will be of great help.
okay, sir.
And even with adults, when it comes to exploration of problem and sort, art therapy techniques do help.
Okay,
um, so art therapy, I would suggest that is one thing you can use those techniques and approaches from art therapy in certain areas of guidance as well. So it is very well handful in terms of technique. Art therapy is a go-to. And
okay,
if you want to learn a wider perspective, which a lot of people don't really do, then go for a program on SFBT,
okay,
solution focused brief therapy, because for people in certain areas where rigorous therapy like extensive 8 to 10 weeks of therapy is not possible, we can go with SFBT techniques, and that makes it short, like 4 to 6 weeks, or even minimum of 4 weeks, and you
okay,
can see greater changes. So SFBT again is a growing therapy area. It's interesting as well. You can
okay, okay, sir.
explore.
Thank you.
Um, okay, I have a question here in the chat box. MA and MEd counseling psychology you're saying. Um, I'm not really aware of what is the MEd counseling psychology program because I've not heard about it yet. It's mostly MSc because yeah, there are certain areas where it's MA, and then in most cases now it's an MSc in counseling psychology. So I don't know what you were trying to ask there, but if you want asking whether general MA or MA in applied psychology, MSc applied psychology, and MSc in counseling, what difference that make? Applied or just MSc, it's very broad. It doesn't narrow down to any particular area. But when it comes to counseling, it becomes a specialization. It narrows down, and you will be learning more of therapies and approaches in counseling psychology if you specialize in that. So your skill set to become a counseling psychologist will be refined in that particular program, wherein in MA or MSc it is more generic. It still gives you an overview of psychology in a little depth compared to your UG, but specialization is more of skill set. Shruti has asked better scope, industrial or counseling. Um, that is kind of a tricky question to answer because my friends who work in the industrial area will not be happy if I give an open statement. But the areas that a counseling psychologist can work and the areas that an industrial psychologist can work, the number of areas differs. Right? And when it comes to counseling psychology, the number of areas, as we were discussing, the number of areas that we can operate in is high. So if we think of scope in terms of the number of opportunities, counseling has higher scope. Because when it comes to industrial psychology, you are in the same cadre with people from MBA background, so active component in the field. And for you to show that okay, I'm prominent with this, and this makes a difference as to how I can contribute as an industrial psychologist, it might take some time for establishment, but counseling needn't worry with those. Soumya, can MSc psychology people also do counseling? Yes, because with basic understanding of counseling techniques, you would, even if it is an MSc psychology, you will have papers of counseling and certain practical areas. But then it is all about how confident you are with your skills. Let's say you have additional training and you have equipped yourself to handle counseling sessions. At least you can start with supervision and then eventually. What roles can school counselor play? Primarily the mental health of children, and in guidance with education and guidance with meeting adolescents and adulthood. And I think learning the difficulty for people who need some extra push, all that can be done. School counselors can also train the teachers there, additional role. Sir, I'm studying fourth sem in MSc clinical psychology. Yes, Vinod, as we were saying, that is a gray area when it comes to work. A lot of my batchmates who are in clinical psychology are now working as counselors. So they do. It end of the day comes back to your potential to handle sessions. But that won't be a problem. All right, I think we are done for the day. So thank you all for listening patiently to the session. Hope it was of help. Hope you had a bit of insight here and there, and you can reach out, follow Chanakya, and you'll get to know more of such programs. We have a month long of internship in counseling, clinical, industrial. So we do run month long internship programs. If you're interested, you can join that. And if someone's from Coimbatore, we have a offline session on art therapy coming up. So stay tuned with our social media handles, and you'll be able to get the updates of Chanakya. Right? We run certificate courses on art therapy. If someone wants to get inducted into art therapy, we run courses as well for our career counselors. Stay tuned, and happy to be of help. Right? Thank you, guys. Good day.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, ma'am. Say,